Hey, Modern Community, Jeff here for another thread response. This is for Trini Metal Grooves. He has hit 200 subscribers and is basically throwing out a challenge to, kind of get a boost there. And yeah, so I figured we'd support this because it's kind of fun. Everything's based on twos. He has 4 questions, which seems odd, but it is a derivative. You can divide it by 2. So anyway, so the first question, very simple. Jump on it. I'll have a link below. You can jump on this thread too. Some fun stuff. So the first question is a 3-parter. He wants to see in your collection the 2nd, the 20th, and the 200th album. Now, my collection is divided in like 4 subsections: hard rock and metal. I'm sorry, mostly metal. Everything behind me is hard rock and metal. And then I have a section for rock and hard rock, which would be like classic type rock. And then I have a section for jazz. Mini sections like soundtracks and stuff don't count because I'm thinking larger sections. So I have a larger section of jazz and a larger section of pop. And mainly I break those down that way because rather than just have it flow through the entire thing. Plus you can, if you're in the mood for a certain type of genre, you go to that section, find that. In this case, not going through this, which I tend to show a lot of harder edge stuff, I decided to go with the rock and hard rock to go with that. So second album is Reconstructions by AD. AD is a band that Kerry Livgren did after he left Kansas. And this is their 1, 2, 3, his 4th album, I guess. If you count the first solo album, which was, I still throw it into the AD situation. The second album had the AD moniker, but it was still Kerry Livgren. And then he did Art of the State and Reconstructions and went on from there. And so, yeah, great album. Just amazing stuff. I love his solo stuff. And, it's not too unlike Kansas if you're into that, but it is. It's different. So great stuff from Kerry Livgren. Then you jump forward 18 more points, and number 20 is Once Upon a Time, the newest, I believe, 2023 release from the Resurgence of Angel, who came back and did, this is what, their 2nd album after they kind of got back together. Classic 70s band that, came back all these years later with a couple original members and have been putting out some pretty decent music ever since. And so we got Angel in at number 20. And then jumping forward into the 200, we have Gentle Giant with Freehand. And yeah, I have a handful of Gentle Giant. I still got a long way to go with them. Classic prog band from the 70s, seemed to be influential on a lot of other bands. That's how I kept hearing about them, with some of the other prog bands I listened to kept mentioning the influence that Gentle Giant had on them. So I'm like, well, I need to check those guys out because I'd never heard of them, until a handful of years ago. And started picking their stuff up when I can. And I have a handful now, but still got a long way to go. But they are number 200 in that selection. Okay, so that's the first part of the question. Second one is a band where 2 members have other projects, side projects, solo projects, things along that line. Now, I found a band where actually every member has that kind of thing. So maybe I went overboard. It's a thread. Who cares, right? We're talking Dream Theater. These guys are very active. And obviously, some of these guys have multiple side projects. Obviously like Mike Portnoy. But we're going to stick with the not so obvious ones. John Petrucci, the guitar player, has some solo albums on the side. Not only that, Mike Portnoy does play on this album. John did another solo album a handful of years ago. He was part of the G3 thing at one point with Mike Portnoy on drums for him back then. But this was a more recent release that John did, and Mike played drums on here before Mike was part of Dream Theater again. So this is one of those albums that when it came out, people were like, have they mended their issues? Because now they're playing together on this album. And sure enough, it wasn't too long after that it was announced that Mike was back in Dream Theater. One of the other projects the 2 of them did, and it was also a sign that they were working back together, was Liquid Tension Experiment. Now, this is the 3rd LTE album. The first 2 came out back in the days when they were in Dream Theater together. And Jordan Rudess played keyboards for LTE. He was not in Dream Theater though. The reason they apparently quit doing Liquid Tension Experiment was when Jordan joined Dream Theater full time. Then it became, this project is 3/4 Dream Theater with Tony Levin on bass. It's just, before that it was like two Dream Theater guys jamming with two renowned musicians on, on bass and keyboards. But then when Jordan joined, they were like, now it's just Dream Theater light with, a different bass player. It's an instrumental project. But, they went ahead years later and decided to do a third album to, much to my pleasant surprise. And so, yeah, they came back and did it. And so this is a band where, this is an album now where you have all three, you have three Dream Theater guys, because you got Jordan in here also as part of this project. Now, Jordan has numerous solo albums. A lot of them have just been reissued on vinyl. They're on my wish list. I'm one day may get them. He has some, they're all instrumental for the most part, I believe. I have digital tracks of some of the older ones. I think I used to have CDs of some of the older ones, but don't anymore. Now they're on vinyl. They're not high on the list of once, but they are there. And so there are a lot of those. I could show those. He's done a lot of stuff, and he has stellar membership. Just some of the best guitar players, bass players, friends and everything. And they tend to be everything from really heavy and crunchy to lighter stuff. So, but on the other side, James LaBrie, the singer for Dream Theater, has done numerous solo albums. Also, this is his latest. He did the Mole Muzzler stuff back in the 90s, which was kind of a band project. They later, in recent years, were reissued on vinyl as James LaBrie's Mole Muzzler. So they did tag his name on it, because beforehand, I don't know, they were just kind of like a project band between him and some people. But now, and he has done a handful, 3 or 4 actual solo albums in recent years. So they all have side projects. Even the bass player, John Myung, has done quite a bit of work with Jelly Jam. They did some albums back in the 90s, took a little break, and then this one came out not terribly long ago. I want to say in the past 10 years. I don't remember the name. I'm not going to try to look it up in this dark climate. But anyway, him, Ty Tabor from King's X, and Rod Morgenstein from the Dregs. He did some time, Winger. He was in Winger, right? Yeah. He's been in a lot of stuff. Anyway, didn't he also do some Twisted Sister? I don't know. He's amazing drummer. They just rock it out here with some interesting music. They have, I think, 2 albums prior to this that are not on vinyl that I have on CD from back in the 90s. And then this album came out on vinyl, and I did grab this. So there you go. John, the bass player, is out there doing his stuff too. He's also been in Platypus, which is another band I'd love to see on vinyl. I have the CDs. Platypus also has Ty Tabor. Am I remembering that correctly? Ty Tabor and John. There's something different about that band. It has, was that the one that has Derek? Anyway, Jelly Jam came a little after Platypus. There was 2 Platypus albums, and I'm totally getting confused on the lineups now. Was Derek Shrinian in there? Anyway, there was some stuff in there, but there's at least 2 Platypus albums that are really good, and like 3, I believe, Jelly Jam albums. And so, yeah, love to see them all reissued, but great stuff. So the bass player is also involved in side projects too. Now, the next question in here is 2 bands, past or present, alive or dead, whatever, that you would like to see or have seen in concert. I'm going to go with Riot. I would love to see the early Guy Speranza years. I would love to see the Rhett Forster years that followed right after this. Any of the early years of Riot, I think, would be really great to see, of the early days of the original 2 singers back in the day. So there's one I would have loved to have seen back in the day live. The other one is a little oddity. Wrathchild. They put out a handful of albums in the 80s, early 90s, and then the singer left. They had some issues. Anyway, I love this album, love this era. Straight up glam type stuff. Look at all the killer studs and spikes. The singer left. He's done some stuff on the side under his name. The band went on and did another album without him with a different singer. And then, things get kind of quiet. But recently, there has been a lot of recent posts that the singer's back. I don't know who's in the band, but he is back in Wrathchild, and there have been talks of a new album. So hopefully all these years later, 40 years later, we may see some new stuff. But I would love to see this. There is a concert of them out on I have it on DVD from back in the day. So there is some live footage to see, but I think it just would have been fun to have experienced that concert back in the day. So that's my second one. And then the last thing he wants to see is at least 2 shout outs. I'm going to go ahead and shout out. I think he shouted out to at least one of these also, but 2 of what I would consider the 2 of the most busiest guys in the VC as far as their interaction with other people. I get comments on almost every video by them. They both have channels that have lower subscriptions, so I would love it if you would go check them out and support them. And that's Christian Osorio. I'll have his link below. I think he comments on everything. I try to watch most everything he does. Great stuff down in Chile. And then you've got Tony over at Tainted Lord. Again, he has been around for a long time. I've followed him for a long time, and he comments on a lot of my videos. There are so many other out there, and I may go ahead and include some other shout outs because there's a lot of other channels that really deserve some attention if you're not aware of them. But that's it for this one. Great stuff. Check out his channel, Trendy Metal Grooves, and we will see you later. Rock on and rock hard.